Blessings will follow in the space of gratitude. Intro, powerful hook. What if I told you that the peace you've been searching for, the healing you've been craving, and the love you've been waiting on are all waiting for you, just on the other side of gratitude? Yes, gratitude, that quiet, often overlooked power we hold. In a world that's constantly telling us to chase more, fix more, become more, gratitude says, stop, look. You already have something worth cherishing. And in that sacred pause, blessings begin to move. So today, we're not just talking about being thankful. We're talking about creating a space, an open, welcoming space, for life to pour more into us than we ever thought possible. Let's dive into 8 powerful truths that will transform your perspective and create real, lasting change. You know, that moment when the alarm hasn't even gone off yet, and the world is still holding its breath. Maybe a sliver of sunrise slips across the bedroom wall, or you catch the soft hum of the ceiling fan above you. In that fragile, in-between hush, the mind is already sprinting. Did I pay that bill? Why hasn't she called back? What if the test comes back positive? Our beautiful, miraculous brains were built for survival, so they race ahead, cataloging danger, rehearsing disappointment, bracing for impact. But there's another door we can choose to open. Picture yourself pausing, just one deep, mindful breath, and asking, almost like a gentle invitation, what is steady right now? What is kind, solid, true? Maybe it's the rhythmic rise of your chest, proof that life is still choosing you. Maybe it's the faint scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen, promising warmth. In that instant, the spotlight swings from scarcity to sufficiency, from chaos to calm. You haven't changed the facts of your life, email inbox still full, deadlines still looming, but you have changed the theater in which those facts are projected. That is the power of gratitude. It drapes the mind in the present moment like a comforting shawl, shielding it from icy winds of regret and anxiety. Neurologists tell us that when we linger on appreciation, the amygdala, our inner alarm bell, settles down and the prefrontal cortex lights up, allowing clearer judgment and deeper creativity. Gratitude isn't a dainty courtesy, it's cognitive re-engineering. It's as if every appreciative thought whispers to the neural pathways, rewire here, strengthen this bridge. Over time, that rewiring means we default to noticing what sustains us instead of what depletes us. I once spoke with a woman who had spent years caring for a partner through chronic illness. She said the mornings that threatened to break her were the ones where she woke rehearsing the day's hardships. But on the mornings she began by naming, out loud, the 3 mercies that greeted her. The steady beep of the oxygen machine reminding her he was still here. The neighbor who always brought mail to the porch. The sturdy oak outside her window surviving every storm. Those mercies expanded. Pain was still pain, work still work, but her heart was padded against despair. That padding is resilience, and it is sewn one grateful stitch at a time. Watch what happens inside a relationship when gratitude leads the conversation. Picture 2 people in the kitchen, dishes piled high, schedules colliding. It's so easy to let impatience slip out as an exasperated sigh, to criticize the way the dishwasher was loaded or how someone forgot the grocery list. Now imagine rewinding the scene. Same dishes, same schedule. One partner turns, places a hand on the other's shoulder, looks, really looks, and says, I see how hard you're trying. Thank you for keeping this home running. Muscles unclench, shoulders drop, a smile appears almost involuntarily. The situation didn't change. The story about the situation did. Gratitude softens the edges of resentment like warm water on stubborn clay, giving both people a chance to reshape the narrative into something kinder, truer. And when the story is kinder, behavior follows suit. Cooperation replaces competition. Tenderness replaces tally-keeping. Laughter finds its way back to the table. Of course, gratitude is not airbrushing. It doesn't deny grief or gloss over injustice. What it does is widen the frame so pain is no longer the whole picture. Think of a boat tossed on choppy waves. Drop anchor, and the boat still feels the waters heave, but it no longer drifts aimlessly. Gratitude is that anchor. It says, yes, the storm is real, but so is the anchor. In practical terms, that anchor might be a 5-minute ritual before your feet touch the floor. One hand over the heart, one over the belly, whispering thank yous for what is already holding you. Your lungs doing their patient work. Your memories of loved ones who taught you strength. The gift of another sunrise to try again. With repetition, that ritual carves a groove of calm the mind can slip into, even in the middle of the day, like a well-worn path through a garden. And what of the times when life feels like a relentless series of curveballs, doctor's appointments, layoffs, unexpected losses? This is when gratitude becomes a fierce, deliberate choice rather than a gentle mood. It is not pretending things are fine. It is declaring that, even here, something life-giving persists. I have met widows who keep journals labeled evidence of good, inscribing a single line each night. The neighbor's dog who sat at their feet on the porch. The daughter who texted a photo of the grandbaby's new tooth. The cashier who remembered their name. Tiny sparks, maybe, but those sparks illuminate the next step forward. Over months, those journals grow thick, heavy with proof that the heart can hold joy and sorrow in the same chambers and keep beating. Gratitude is not a denial of darkness. It is the lantern we carry through it. Now, once the mind is anchored, in that luminous present, something alchemical begins to happen. You walk into a room, not as a bundle of worries, but as a broadcast tower of quiet assurance, and people feel it before you speak. Energy is not just a poetic notion. It is a real, measurable phenomenon. Heart rate variability studies show that a body settled in gratitude emits coherent, rhythmic signals, and the bodies around it subconsciously sync to that rhythm. You have seen it. Someone enters a gathering carrying a storm cloud, and suddenly conversations stiffen, smiles dim. But let a person arrive who is rooted in appreciation, eyes warm, shoulders relaxed, and watch how the air shifts, how laughter bubbles more easily, how strangers strike up conversation. It's almost as though gratitude perfumes the atmosphere, with possibility. Think back to moments when you felt invisible, perhaps at a reunion or a work conference, watching clusters of conversation form while you hovered at the edges. It is tempting to blame charisma, to believe some people are simply born with a magnet in their marrow. But the magnet is cultivated. It is crafted in private moments of appreciation that condition the nervous system to stay open rather than guarded. When you have spent the morning noticing how the tea warmed your palms, or how the old song on the radio sparked a forgotten memory, you step into public spaces already convinced that life is generous. That conviction shows up in your posture, the tilt of your chin, the softness around your eyes. Mirror neurons and other people scan those cues and whisper, safe, welcoming, interesting, and before you know it, conversations unfold like flower. Petals opportunities, too, are living things drawn to warmth. A woman once told me she had been passed over for promotion 3 years in a row. She did the work, logged the hours, but she carried exhaustion and bitterness like a cloak. Then she began an experiment. Every evening, she wrote one sentence of gratitude specifically about her job, sometimes just, "The copier worked all day," or "I laughed in the break room." 3 weeks in, colleagues started inviting her to coffee. 2 months in, she found herself speaking up in meetings, not from a place of proving worth, but from genuine excitement about solutions. That fiscal quarter, when management needed someone to spearhead a new project, her name floated to the top, not only because her resume was solid, but because her presence suggested collaboration and hope. Gratitude didn't change her skill set. It amplified the signal of her capability so others could hear it. There's neuroscience here, yes. Gratitude engages the reward circuitry, releasing dopamine and setting off a positive feedback loop that fuels confidence. But there's mystery too, something soulful and shimmering that science hasn't quite pinned down. Call it resonance, vibration, the law of sowing and reaping. What matters is that the posture of your heart is broadcasting on a frequency the world reads. A heart tuned to gratitude tends to collect experiences that confirm its expectation of goodness, the way a radio dialed to jazz won't pick up hard rock. This doesn't mean tragedy vanishes. It means that even in tragedy, signals of grace find their way through, and you are attuned enough to notice and receive them. There is a sovereignty in choosing that signal each morning. Before the to-do list sprawls across your mind, you might stand barefoot on the floor, declare something as simple as, "I am already enough, and this day is already a gift," and feel that sentence vibrate through your bones. Maybe you give your reflection a smile, not contingent on how rested you look, or how the jeans fit, but on the miracle that you are here to witness another sunrise. Carry that inner smile to the grocery line, to the video conference, to the family dinner. It will leak out in the curve of your mouth, in the patience of your listening, in the steadiness of your gaze. People may not name it, but they will feel nourished in your company, and they will associate that nourishment with your presence like a favorite song they're eager to replay. There will be days, of course, when the vibration dips. Illness, heartbreak, exhausting headlines. That's when you return to the anchor, back to the breath, back to the simple act of naming 1, 2, 3 mercies. You let those mercies lift you just enough, so the signal doesn't go dark. Some mornings, the only mercy you can find is the fact that tears are proof your heart is still tender. That counts. Log it. Honor it. Every logged mercy is another link in the chain pulling you toward higher ground, where your energy can radiate again, and the blessings attuned to that energy can find their way to you. There's a subtle ache we carry in relationships. The ache of being unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. It can creep in slowly, like water slipping through a crack in the foundation, until one day we wake up next to someone we love deeply and feel distant. Not angry, not even disappointed, just quietly removed, like we're speaking two different languages. And in those moments, it's so easy to focus on what's missing. The words they didn't say, the help they didn't offer, the phone call that never came. But what if I told you that the bridge back to connection often begins with something so simple, so small, it almost feels too quiet to matter? Gratitude. Yes, that single breath of acknowledgement, that whisper of, "I see you." Because beneath every hard conversation, behind every wall someone builds, there is almost always a longing to be valued, to feel like their efforts, however imperfect, are noticed. And the truth is, we are often so close to healing a fracture. We're just one moment of appreciation away. One word of thanks that says, "I know you've been trying." When we begin with gratitude instead of criticism, something extraordinary happens. People soften. Walls lower. The nervous system relaxes. And suddenly there's room for love to move again. Imagine, for a second, someone standing at the kitchen sink, shoulders hunched, scrubbing the same pan for the third time that week. They don't complain, but maybe their movements are tired. Maybe you've walked by them 100 times without saying a word, because dishes are just expected. But this time, you pause. You lay your hand gently on their back and say, "Thank you for doing this, even when no one asks. I see you." That moment, right there, that is where healing begins. Not just for them, for you too. Because something shifts inside of us when we start to focus on what people are doing right. We stop keeping score. We stop waiting to be proven right or owed an apology. We just see. The emotional distance that builds in relationships is so rarely about the big, dramatic events. It's not the shouting matches or the betrayals that wear most connections down. It's the slow erosion of appreciation. the silent assumption that our love is obvious, that the other person already knows how we feel. But no one is immune to longing. No one is so strong that they don't need affirmation. And when gratitude re-enters the room, it becomes a balm. Not because it fixes everything overnight, but because it changes the tone. It changes the emotional climate of your home, your partnership, your friendships. It invites vulnerability. And vulnerability is where intimacy lives. Even in the moments when a relationship feels stuck, when it seems like you've said all there is to say, tried all there is to try, gratitude opens a door. Not by ignoring the hard truths, but by creating a safe space in which those truths can be shared. I've sat with women who've told me, "He doesn't understand me anymore. She doesn't listen." And often, what they're really saying is, "I don't feel seen. I don't feel valued." So I always ask, gently, when was the last time you said thank you? When was the last time you looked them in the eye and told them what they're still getting right? And that question, it does something. Because gratitude isn't about ignoring pain. It's about honoring what's still sacred, even in the midst of the mess. You see, gratitude creates emotional safety, and safety is the soil where relationships bloom. It doesn't mean you'll never argue. It doesn't mean people won't disappoint you. But it does mean that underneath the hard days, there's a foundation strong enough to hold both truth and tenderness. And that is what every soul longs for. Not perfection, but presence. Not constant agreement, but mutual regard. When we are intentional about noticing the good, when we speak it, write it, celebrate it, we give our relationships room to breathe. Now I want to talk about something even deeper. Because gratitude isn't just a bridge between people. It's a lifeline to our own strength. And that strength is what carries us through the hardest seasons of life. The seasons when everything feels like it's falling apart. When the diagnosis comes. When the job ends. When someone you love becomes a memory instead of a daily presence. In those moments, gratitude can feel like the most unnatural response. You might think, how can I be grateful in this? But that's where its real power lies. Because gratitude, when practiced deliberately in pain, becomes resilience. There's a kind of strength that doesn't roar. It doesn't need applause. It shows up quietly, like an old friend, and says, "I'm still here." That strength is built one breath at a time when you choose to notice what still holds. Maybe your body aches, but your spirit wakes up anyway. Maybe your heart is broken, but someone calls to check in. Maybe the future is uncertain, but this moment, this one right here, still offers something steady. Maybe it's the way your dog rests his head on your lap. Maybe it's the way your favorite song comes on the radio, just when you needed it most. These are not small things. These are lifelines. And every time you say thank you for them, you strengthen your grip on hope. I remember speaking to a woman who had lost her son. Her grief was so vast it filled every room. And yet, she kept a gratitude journal, just one sentence a day. Some days, all she could write was, "The sunlight came through the curtains." Other days it was, "I didn't cry when I poured his cereal this morning." These were not triumphs in the traditional sense, but they were anchors. They reminded her that even in unimaginable loss, life was still trying to love her in small, persistent ways. Gratitude didn't take her pain away, but it gave her something to hold on to when the world felt like it was slipping. There is a sacred fierceness in choosing gratitude when your heart is weary. Because what you're really saying is, "I refuse to let sorrow define the full measure of my life." And when you say that, when you speak that truth over your day, you begin to rise. Not all at once. Not in a straight line. But slowly, faithfully, you begin to gather the pieces of yourself. You begin to recognize that you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to hold on to. So many of us are walking around, carrying old wounds like badges. And those wounds become filters through which we see everything. We expect disappointment. We brace for rejection. And because we're wired to protect ourselves, we start closing off. But the problem is, when you close off the pain, you also close off the joy. Gratitude helps us stay open. It helps us keep the windows of our heart unlocked, so the breeze of something better can still find us. Even in the moments when we feel least deserving, even when shame whispers that we haven't done enough, haven't been enough, gratitude invites us back to grace. It reminds us that we don't have to earn the sunrise or prove ourselves worthy of the laughter of a friend. These are gifts, freely given. And when we receive them, we are reminded of our own worth, not because we've achieved something, but because we've allowed ourselves to be held. There is no one-size-fits-all prescription for resilience. But I can tell you this. When you begin each day by naming what still blesses you, no matter how small, you start to reclaim your power. You start to rewrite your story. Gratitude doesn't mean everything is okay. It means you are okay, right here, right now, in the middle of the chaos. It means your spirit is still speaking. And it is speaking of endurance, of beauty, of grace. When you carry gratitude with you into the battlefield of your everyday life, you armor yourself in something no one can take away. Not rejection, not failure, not even grief. You stand taller, walk slower, breathe deeper. You smile more easily, not because everything is perfect, but because you've learned to see what is still good, what is still possible, what is still yours. And so, the next time life tests you, because it will, the next time you feel like falling apart, I want you to pause, close your eyes, and just name one thing you're grateful for. One thing that proves the light hasn't left you. It might be your own heartbeat. It might be the memory of someone who taught you how to keep going. That moment of gratitude becomes your ground, your anchor, your strength. And with every breath that follows, you begin again. Stronger, softer, wiser, more open to the blessings that are waiting in places you never thought to look. You know, there's a moment in life. Maybe it happens while you're standing at the sink after dinner, or folding clothes that no one seems to notice were ever cleaned, where you pause and think, is this it? Not in a way that screams despair, but in a quiet, bone-deep yearning that wonders if you've been missing something along the way. You've done the work. You've loved your people. You've stayed strong when the world expected you to crumble. But beneath all of that, there's this whisper, this gentle nudge from your soul asking, what about me? What about my purpose? My calling? My joy? See, for so many of us, life becomes a series of obligations. And because we are good, we fulfill them. We show up. We hold others up. We hold everything together. But there comes a time when you have to stop and ask yourself not just what you're doing, but who you're becoming. And that's where gratitude changes everything. Because when you begin to look at your life through the lens of appreciation, you don't just see what you have. You start to see who you are. And even more powerfully, you begin to see who you're called to be. Gratitude opens the door to divine alignment. It creates space for clarity, for insight, for direction. It lifts the fog that's been clouding your intuition. Suddenly, those small moments, the times you feel inexplicably at peace doing something simple, like gardening or writing or caring for someone, those moments shine like breadcrumbs from your higher self. Gratitude sharpens your awareness of what truly lights you up. It says, this matters. Pay attention here. I've talked to women who spent decades in roles they didn't love, jobs they tolerated, relationships they settled into, routines they never questioned. Until one day, they began to practice gratitude not just for the things around them, but for the stirrings within them. They started listening to the quiet voice that said, "You've always loved painting," or "Remember how happy you were when you used to dance." And once they honored that voice with gratitude, once they said, "Thank you, inner knowing, for showing up again," life began to expand. They didn't have to quit their jobs or blow up their lives. They just started giving more of themselves to what felt right. And that authenticity, my God, it was like the universe responded immediately. That's the thing. Gratitude isn't just about the past. It's a magnet for the future. It sends out a frequency that says, I am ready for more of what aligns with who I really am. And blessings, true soul-fulfilling blessings, follow that frequency. It's not magic. It's not even mystery. It's alignment. You stop fighting who you are, and you start honoring her. Sometimes we think finding purpose means embarking on some grand quest, but more often than not, purpose shows up in the ordinary. It's in the way you light up when you help someone. It's in the calm that washes over you when you speak truth, even if your voice trembles. It's in the feeling you get when you're doing something that feels timeless, effortless, true. Gratitude allows you to recognize those moments, to lean into them, to say, yes, this is who I am. And here's the beautiful part. When you live from that place, from that depth of self-awareness and reverence, the right people, the right opportunities, the right healing, they all begin to find you because you're no longer pretending. You're no longer shrinking. You are vibrating in the fullness of who you were always meant to be. But let's be honest, that kind of authenticity, that kind of soul-level honesty can be terrifying. Especially if you've spent years pleasing others, managing everyone else's expectations. So much of our fear comes from wondering, what will people think if I change? If I choose differently? If I no longer apologize for wanting more? But you want to know the truth? When you choose gratitude for your own growth, not just for what you've endured, but for what you're becoming, you step into your own power, and you stop looking for permission to live fully, because the only permission you ever needed was your own. And gratitude hands it to you like a golden key and says, go ahead, unlock the door. Now, the other side of that key, the other miracle gratitude brings, is forgiveness. Forgiveness not just for others, but for yourself. How many of us are carrying shame? Regret? Guilt for choices we made when we didn't know better? How many times have we replayed moments from the past, hoping we could undo them? And yet, no matter how many times we revisit those scenes, the past remains the same. What changes? What can change? Is our relationship to it. Gratitude transforms our history. It doesn't erase the pain, but it reclaims the power we gave away. It lets us say, yes, that happened. And still, I'm here. And still, I've grown. And still, I've learned. Gratitude lets you gather up the broken pieces and see that they have made you whole in a new way. I remember listening to a woman describe a time in her life when everything fell apart. Divorce, bankruptcy, the works. She said she carried so much anger, not just at her ex or the circumstances, but at herself, for staying too long, for trusting too much, for not seeing the signs. But years later, when she started writing down things she was grateful for, not to be polite, but as a lifeline, she realized something. Every hard chapter had brought her to a new level of strength, a new truth about herself. And one night she wrote, "Thank you, past me. You were doing your best, and I forgive you." That was her turning point, not the therapy, not the new job, but that moment, the moment when gratitude allowed her to soften toward herself, to stop making her past self the villain in her own story. How often do we extend compassion to others but deny it to ourselves? How often do we say, I understand, to someone else's flaws, but weaponize our own mistakes like they define us forever? Forgiveness is freedom, and gratitude is the doorway to it. When you sit with yourself in stillness, hand over heart, and say, "Thank you for surviving. Thank you for trying. Thank you for showing up again, even when it was hard," something releases. Something heavy lifts. And in that space, you begin to believe that you are worthy, not because you've never failed, but because you've kept going. We often talk about letting go like it's a one-time event, but letting go is a practice, a sacred ritual, and gratitude is the thread that keeps us tethered to the truth while everything else falls away. The truth that we are growing, that we are learning, that we are allowed to be new. And let me tell you something else. Gratitude for yourself, for your path, for your scars. It changes how you show up in the world. People can feel it. They can sense when someone has made peace with herself. It's in your energy, in your presence. You become less reactive, less defensive, more open, more loving, not just toward others, but toward yourself. And that love ripples outward. You stop judging people so harshly because you know what it took to forgive yourself. You stop needing to control everything because you trust the unfolding. You stop measuring your worth by comparison because you finally see your own light. Gratitude brings you home to yourself. It teaches you that your worth isn't rooted in how much you do or how well you please others. It's in the simple, sacred truth that you are here, alive, growing, becoming. And no matter what has come before, no matter what pain, what loss, what shame, you are allowed to move forward with grace. You are allowed to say, "I am grateful for who I've been, and even more grateful for who I'm becoming." You are allowed to let your past be a teacher, not a prison. You are allowed to forgive. And most of all, you are allowed to love yourself, not just the polished, presentable parts, but the messy, beautiful human wholeness of who you truly are. There is something profoundly transformative that happens when we learn to truly embrace the present moment with gratitude. So often, we get caught in the endless loop of what's next, planning for the future, worrying about what might go wrong, or replaying the past in our minds. But gratitude has this incredible way of pulling us back to now, to the simple, sacred space of the present where life actually happens. It's in that space that blessings begin to bloom in the most unexpected and beautiful ways. Think about it. How often do we rush through our days without really seeing the moments that make life rich? We wake up, go through the motions, and forget to notice the golden light streaming through the window, the warmth of a familiar smile, or the taste of our morning coffee. These moments are the threads that weave the tapestry of our lives, and gratitude is the needle that stitches them together into something vibrant and whole. When we cultivate gratitude for the present, we stop chasing happiness as if it's a distant prize. Instead, we start to recognize that happiness is already here, wrapped up in the ordinary, the mundane, the everyday. This shift in perspective isn't just a feel-good mantra. It's deeply rooted in psychological research showing that people who practice gratitude regularly experience greater well-being, lower stress, and stronger relationships. But more than that, it opens us up to a sense of presence that can quiet our minds and soothe our souls. Presence is the doorway to peace. When you are fully present, you're not burdened by regrets from the past or anxieties about the future. You're here, right here. And in that moment, you can breathe deeply, listen fully, and feel the fullness of life coursing through you. This is where gratitude works its magic, not as a destination, but as a daily practice that invites you to return home to yourself again and again. The power of living gratefully in the present also strengthens our relationships. When we pay attention to the now, we become better listeners, more compassionate partners, and more generous friends. We stop taking others for granted and start to appreciate the ways they show up, even in small, quiet gestures. It's in this awareness that love deepens and connection grows. When someone feels truly seen and valued in the moment, it sparks a cycle of kindness that ripples outward, enriching every interaction. But here's the truth. Many of us hesitate to admit practicing presence through gratitude requires courage, because to be fully present means we have to face ourselves, our fears, our pains, our vulnerabilities. It means letting go of distractions and defenses we've built up over the years. It means showing up, fully and honestly, for our own lives. And that can be scary, but it's also where transformation begins. In the quiet of presence, gratitude becomes a beacon. It lights the way through uncertainty and invites us to trust the journey, even when the path is unclear. It reminds us that we are not alone, that life is unfolding exactly as it should, and that every breath is a gift. This awareness doesn't erase challenges, but it changes how we meet them, with grace, resilience, and an open heart. Now, let's talk about the incredible ripple effect gratitude creates when we share it. Gratitude is not a solitary practice. It's a gift that multiplies when given away. When we express our appreciation to our family, friends, colleagues, even strangers, we set off waves of positivity that uplift everyone involved. A simple thank you can brighten a day, restore faith, and build bridges where walls once stood. Sharing gratitude creates community. It fosters connection in a world that can sometimes feel isolating. It reminds us that we are part of something bigger than ourselves, a web of human stories woven together by acts of kindness and recognition. When you share your gratitude openly, you invite others to do the same, creating a culture of appreciation that nourishes the soul. Imagine a world where people regularly express what they're thankful for, not just in words but in actions. Where kindness flows freely because it's fueled by genuine recognition of others' worth. That world is possible. It starts with each one of us choosing to notice, to speak up, to shine light on the goodness around us. And when we do, we not only change our own experience, but we inspire others to do the same. Gratitude also transforms the way we lead our lives. When we lead with appreciation, we cultivate patience, empathy, and humility. We become less judgmental, less reactive, more thoughtful. Gratitude softens our hearts and sharpens our insight. It allows us to see beyond surface differences and connect with the shared humanity beneath. There is a special kind of leadership that grows from gratitude, one that is not about control or power, but about service and presence. It's the kind of leadership that nurtures growth in others by first nurturing it in ourselves. It's a leadership rooted in authenticity, vulnerability, and deep respect. When you lead with gratitude, you inspire others to believe in the goodness of the world and their place within it. So, how do we cultivate this beautiful practice in our daily lives? It doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. It can be as simple as pausing each morning to name 3 things you're grateful for, writing a heartfelt note to someone who has touched your life, or simply taking a deep breath and appreciating the moment before you speak. These small acts build a foundation of gratitude that supports you through the ups and downs. Remember, gratitude is a muscle that grows stronger with use. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, and as it becomes woven into the fabric of your days, you begin to notice the blessings multiplying. Not just the big ones, but the subtle, quiet ones that often go unnoticed. The way a friend's laughter lifts your spirit. The way the sun warms your face. The way your own strength surprises you when you thought you had none left. And here's the beautiful secret. The more you cultivate gratitude, the more blessings find their way to you. Because gratitude is a magnet. It draws in joy, love, abundance, and peace. It invites miracles into your life, sometimes disguised as ordinary moments. The journey of gratitude is not about perfection or forcing happiness. It's about showing up imperfect and human, and choosing to see the good even in the struggle. It's about turning towards life with open arms and an open heart. It's about trusting that even when things feel hard or uncertain, there is always something to be thankful for. Something that reminds you of your worth, your strength, your beauty. And as you practice gratitude more deeply, you begin to live a life marked by intention and meaning. You become the architect of your own joy, the guardian of your own peace. You learn to dance with life's challenges rather than fight against them. You discover that blessings are not just what happens to you, they are what you create by the way you see the world. Gratitude invites us to slow down, to savor, to connect. It teaches us that we are enough, just as we are. It whispers to our souls that life is precious, fragile, and profoundly beautiful. And when we listen, truly listen, we find that blessings don't just follow in the space of gratitude. They thrive there. Conclusion. Call to action. So here's your invitation. Don't wait for life to be perfect to be grateful. Be grateful. And watch how life begins to feel more perfect than it ever did before. Right now, pause. Think of 3 things that are holding you up today, big or small. Let that gratitude rise. Let it soften your heart. And let it prepare the space for the blessings to come. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What blessings have shown up in your life when you chose gratitude? Let's start a conversation that heals and uplifts. And if you felt a shift today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is just the beginning of our journey together. Tell me, what topics do you want to dive into next? Your voice matters here. Your story matters, because in this space, we grow together. And blessings, they always follow when we live in gratitude.